The last big idea that we need to talk about for this section is the idea of relative maxima and minima. You can probably guess that maximum and minimum points are just the highest and the lowest points in the graph of your polynomial function. So I'm just going to sketch a polynomial function in here real quick. Let's say it looks something like that. Looks a little crazy. We've got several points of inflection, like we talked about in class today. We've got one here, 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 and here. Now, these points of inflection can all be considered relative maxima or minima, depending on whether it's a maximum point or a minimum point at that point in the function. So we've got some minimum points at 3 spots. Those are all the minimums, or the minima, if you want to be technical about the plural. And then we have a few maximum points, or maxima, and those occur here and here. The easiest way to find the coordinates of either a minimum or a maximum point is just to use your calculator, and we'll talk about how to use that functionality a little bit more tomorrow. I did mention it in class today. You simply go to the Calculate menu by hitting second trace, and then depending on where you are in your function, you're either going to choose to find the maximum or the minimum value, or to use the maximum or the minimum feature on your calculator. Something that I do want to mention is that your book refers to these as relative minima or maxima. And that simply means that relative to the region of your polynomial that you're looking at, you might be focusing on a minimum or a maximum point. There's also an idea that I don't believe is mentioned in your book called absolute maxima or minima. Actually, absolute maximum or absolute minimum. A polynomial function can only have one maximum, absolute maximum point, or one absolute minimum point. It can't have both. But it could have several relative maximum or minimum points. In the function that I've drawn here, there is no absolute maximum point, because if you notice, the polynomial just goes on forever in both directions, so it keeps going up, so there is no maximum that we can talk about. There is, however, an absolute minimum point, which is right here, because it is the overall minimum point on the polynomial. There is no point on the polynomial that is lower than that point, so that's why it's the absolute minimum. Again, absolute minimum or maximum just means that for the entire polynomial, that's either the highest or the lowest point. If you're talking about a relative maximum or minimum, there could be several of those in a polynomial, and that just means that relative to the area that you're looking at, the small region, you could have minimum points, several minimum points or several maximum points, which is what we saw here. We had 2 minimums and then 3 minimums. Lost track. 3 minimum points and then 2 relative maximum points.